Hey guys, it's John. You are on the JRB tree climbing channel. It was suggested that I reintroduce you to the JRB climbing method. So I started my YouTube channel about 2 years ago, and I introduced you to a new climbing method. It is a doubled rope climbing system, but it is not a moving rope system. A lot of folks talk about DRT. They really mean MRS, or a moving rope system. This is a doubled rope method whereby a single rope goes up and over a tree crotch and back down to you, but we climb that rope without the rope moving. So it's got similarities with MRS, it's got similarities with SRT, but it is a unique and novel method. And so what I'm going to do today is do a really quick demonstration climb, and then I'm going to tell you why I believe this climbing method is advantageous over traditional methods, especially for what we do, saddle hunting. And a key point here is that this method is only one of several methods that we could use with this climbing system. So it's very important to distinguish the difference between a method and a system in your mind. And so what I am going to do today is demonstrate with this, the JRB climbing system, and I'm wearing it, how I climb. This climbing method, like SRT and like MRS, involves the use of a throw ball. Now, it's been reinforced 1,000 times that it's not really feasible to use a throw ball in the dark for a hunter who's going into the woods in the morning and picking out a tree. But I'll tell you, in all my years of hunting, generally speaking, I scout in advance, and I do my throw ball work before the season. And I've got my throw ball work done. I leave a loop of paracord in the tree. I locate that and I climb on it. So that neutralizes the issue of using a throw ball on a hunt. I'm not saying I wouldn't ever do it, or I've never done it, but generally speaking, that is not something I even carry. So the throw ball itself, we'll do a separate video on using it, and there's some great stuff out there already, but it's like throwing horseshoes. You know, we get better at it. So I'm going to throw this up in this tree. This is going to be a relatively short climb. I'm only going less than 20 feet, so we can keep you in the field of view. So let's get this in the tree. And, you know, with a tree of this nature, it's really not hard to hit your crotch, usually the first time. But you know, there's a lot of technique if we're going higher or a more complex tree. So I'm going to get down there to the tree. We're kind of a unique position here where I'm going downhill a little bit, and then I'm going up a little bit. So hopefully you'll be able to keep your eye on me. So this is how I typically get to the tree. I arrive at the tree and I locate not a throw ball, I locate a piece of paracord that's already in the tree. So we'll simulate that here. And I'll get rid of my throw ball. I'm wearing my system. There's nothing to drop. Everything is attached to me. I'm not going to tie any knots at the tree. Unspool my rope, and I'm going to clip it into, I'm going to start putting it up. Now you'll see this here, that's a friction hitch. I'll be climbing on that friction hitch, but it's already on the line. Up and over the crotch, coming back down to me. And now I'm going to disconnect the throw ball, or the preset, disconnect it. The disconnect the end of the rope, which is attached to that, giving me optimal geometry. And I'm going to locate the other friction hitch. Now you're a little distance away, but these two friction hitches are actually tied with different cords. I have a 6mm cord on the left, tied onto a 523 JRB ascender in bridge mode, and on the right I have 5mm cord, different brand, tied using a 623. Your system would not have two friction hitches, two different cords. I do this as a point of experimentation and to demonstrate here today that I can I can get comparable performance with different ropes, with different hitch cords. The only difference is we might need an extra turn. Okay, and so now my saddle has two bridges on it. My upper bridge is my long bridge where I spend my time. I clip that into the friction hitch on the left, and I clip it into the friction, on the right and then the left. And then in my saddlebag, I have my JRB Garda hitch foot loop, but it's attached to me. I couldn't have dropped it because it's attached to my short bridge. And I engage that on the line. And there are separate videos for all of this on my YouTube channel and my website, jrbtreeclimbing.com. I'm going to be using the website to help keep things organized in terms of how to find the latest and greatest videos, because the system has evolved. Okay, so now I'm going to sit into the system. I take all the slack I can out of the friction hitches, and you'll note I'm climbing on dynamic rope today. It's not static rope. This is Mammoet Alpine Dry 8mm. I take all the slack out and I sit in the system. And here's the climb. The climb involves lifting ourselves with, it'll be my right leg and both arms, and I just stand. That is the rising move in the JRB climbing method. And I don't know if you can tell, but that's quite easy. I've done this climb wearing 95 pounds of cast iron. It's quite doable. And then the only real tricky part, something that requires some technique, is advancing these friction hitches. As soon as I get to the top of my stand, I shove them up. That's it. That's it. Now, a new climber, I've watched a number of new climbers try this method out, and that requires a little bit of comfort. And so sometimes a new climber will stand and shove one and then shove the other. And I've done that myself when I want to be optimally quiet. But the only sound you're hearing is the sound of the knot, the friction hitch, moving on the rope. I'm not dragging my feet on the tree. Now, I'm going to point out at this point in the climb that I am tied in to my climbing rope in two places. If something were to go wrong with one of these friction hitches, or both of them, let's say they didn't hold. Let's say my friction hitch didn't hold, so I will simulate that. I'm going to break this friction hitch as if it didn't hold. Look what happens. The system moves a bit, and I'm redundant. I have redundant points of connection. I won't go anywhere. If this failed completely, if it was broken, if it was tied wrong, I am still safe. You'd be hard-pressed to find an SRT system or a moving rope system that has that level of redundancy. My foot loop is providing redundancy for my bridge. And I can stay here indefinitely. I can tie a new friction hitch. I can get out of this situation. Okay, let's resume the climb. I'll repair the system. I just re-engaged that friction hitch. Again, I've got two different cords with a 523 and a 623 JRB ascender, and I have identical performance. I can't tell the difference. My left hand and my right hand are doing an identical amount of work, which is minimal. How minimal, it's hard to describe, but it is effortless to move these. Okay, I won't go higher than I can. Now, I'll point out I've got two ropes. They're both touching the ground. There's hooks on both ends. One might be used to pull up your platform and put it on the tree at this point. One might be used to pull up your bow or your hunting weapon. But you've got two lines to ground. I'm going to now simulate the end of the day or the end of the hunt. It's time to come down. How do I do that? At this point, what I do is I remove my foot loop. I remove the Garda hitch. I leave it on there during the hunt, because it's providing redundancy. I don't disconnect it from my system, I let it hang. And I put in a Munter friction hitch that uses both lines. I've got a video on how to do this from a bird's eye view. I can do it blindfolded. It's a very, very simple knot. Much simpler than tying your shoes. But you got to get the hang of it, right? So now what I'm going to do, under the full weight of my body, these friction hitches up here, I'm going to break them. Now this is an important point. This friction hitch I gave you, the JRB ascender hitch, and I have tried every friction hitch in the book. This is the easiest to move, like you just saw in Ascent, and it is the easiest to break under load. And if that wasn't enough, I have handles on them, which make it behave similar to a mechanical ascender. So, but right now, I'm gonna take a firm grip with my left hand, and I'm just gonna use 2 fingers, and I'm gonna break the one on the right. It's broken. I'm gonna break the one on the left. And this is a fun thing about these experiments. It doesn't surprise me that the 6mm was a little easier to break than the 5. Now I rappel, and with my left hand control friction going into the Munter, and with my right hand I tend those friction hitches. They have no actual friction. They're just a backup. I'll just do it like this, with just so that my right hand can kind of show you how much strength I'm using, a minimal amount. And I come down slowly because my friction on rappel is being burned off in the form of heat, and there's no sense in overheating anything in our system. At this point, I'm going to demonstrate, well, what would happen if you got stung by a bee or you just lost your grip. So I'm going to let go. I'm going to let go with my left hand, completely let go of the system. And the friction hitches bind. They catch me. So I've got redundancy on the way up, and I have a backup on the way down. I will tell you, in my 14 years of climbing, that's never happened. I have never lost control of my lines. But I don't like to think it's not possible to do so. You got to think about every scenario. You could be injured. You could have had a heart attack. You could have been shot. There are a million things that could happen that we just wouldn't ever think of. And it's important to have anticipated every failure mode we can. I'm going to break those again. This time I'm going to break both of them with one hand and resume my rappel. Okay, so now let's talk a little bit about climbing methods in general. The first point is this is a rope climbing method. I've got a lot of friends who use other methods of climbing like ladders and sticks and whatnot. And I have no aversion to you using a different climbing method, but I would like to encourage everyone to tie into the tree. And I don't mean a lineman's belt. There are components of rope climbing that can be employed in more traditional climbing methods. And so you'll want to look at my channel, you'll want to look at my hitch climbing. I'll be doing some more work on how the hitch climbing concepts can be applied to stick climbing and other methods. This is a rope climbing method. Go grab an arborist and ask an arborist how they like to climb a tree. And the answer, by and large, is going to be on the ropes, because we are tied into the tree on zero slack at all times. My feet, my hands, it doesn't matter what I do with them. I can let go, I could slip, I will not fall. So this is a hallmark of rope climbing methods. So now let's talk about, well, why JRB? Why is JRB better than SRT or the moving rope system, or as you might know it as DRT? So here are some points. And some of these points are going to be applicable to MRS, some to SRT, but I'm just going to give you a litany of reasons. So the first one is, there's nothing mechanical here. I didn't need to go buy an expensive friction device. I didn't need to buy a chest ascender and ankle ascenders and a knee ascender. I didn't really need to worry about my rope diameter, because my friction hitches can be chosen, the diameter of the friction hitches is chosen to be commensurate with the diameter of my climbing rope. It's a non-mechanical system. It's an inexpensive system. The primary investment, besides your saddle and your climbing rope, all you've got to buy is some hitch cord and a couple of carabiners and a piece of webbing to build your garter hitch foot loop. It's very inexpensive. So, you know, inexpensive, well, John, is that unsafe? No, that's the thing. I find this method more safe than those other methods. When you actually climb really high, when you get to, you know, over 40 feet and over 50 feet, not that you would use those heights in a hunting situation, but your brain really starts to question your climbing system. And as I had climbed those heights, this redundancy of being attached to the tree and to the rope in two places really gives you confidence. Okay, next point. I did not tie any knots. I didn't tie a friction hitch to get up in the tree, and I didn't tie an anchor. I didn't tie a basal anchor onto the tree. I didn't need to rig up a canopy anchor. That, as soon as this rope got down, I clipped in and I started climbing. That all helps me with regard to time and simplicity. Next, there's no friction in this system. Now, this is particularly a comparison of JRB to moving rope system. But in moving rope system, the rope is moving in the tree crotch and generates a significant amount of friction that you need to overcome to climb. JRB doesn't have that friction, and therefore it is more efficient. Definition of efficiency is the percentage of work that goes into a system that comes out in the form of your intended operation. It's not lost in the system. And JRB is extremely efficient that way. It's fast. I mean, I wasn't showing off there, but there are videos of my channel just kind of walking up to a tree and up to 25 feet in 2.5 minutes without really rushing. And that video was done on the very first take. I'm certain I can climb faster, but I'd really rather not draw attention to that. But when we compare it to climbing methods where folks are 15 and 20 minutes to get into a tree, there's definitely room for improvement, especially in a hunting situation. The system is relatively simple. Now, these friction knots, they're fairly complex, but we don't tie them at the tree. We take care of all the complexity in the basement, in the barn, in the garage when we're tying our friction hitches and when we're testing them. But at the tree, the system is relatively simple in its nature. And another form of simplicity is the fact that I don't have any gizmos. Right? I lost my friction device. I lost my ankle ascender. It's full of mud. No, I'm wearing the system. I can't drop it. I am wearing it. There's no retrieval line, right? So an SRT system with a canopy anchor, you would need a separate line to pull down your canopy anchor, and that can actually be difficult on certain trees. I don't have to worry about that. It's very easy to remove from the tree, and I'll show you that now. Right? I'm just pulling the system down. And of course, there's two rigging points. You have the opportunity, there's a dedicated video on this, you have the opportunity with a little bit more throwball work to rig to 2 trees or 2 points in one tree and climb up in the center of a vase-shaped tree, a complex tree. And these trees offer a lot of hiding spots for us hunters. That's not demonstrated here, but there are other videos on it. And lastly, it is versatile. I could take this climbing system and I can climb unchanged without making any changes to the system. I can climb using this method. I can climb SRT with this system. I can climb moving rope system with this. I can climb JRB hitch climbing with this system. But we're going to save that for another lesson. The point I really just want to make is that JRB tree climbing method is a double rope method that's novel and has a lot of appeal to the saddle hunter for the aforementioned reasons. And I've been asked now in the last couple years quite a bit, well, John, can I buy one of these? You know, I know I could make some money selling these things, but that's not what I'm in it for. It's your responsibility to own your system. Arborists don't ask other arborists to tie their friction knots. That's your responsibility. You need to be able to untie them. You need to be able to inspect them. You need to be able to replace them. If tying knots is not your thing, then this isn't your system. But I do ask that you consider giving it some time. I don't consider myself actually good at tying knots. I've just spent some time doing it. And there's not a lot of knots you need to know to tie this, and none of them do you need to know in the woods. So just consider that in terms of your own growth as a climber. You might be a mechanical climber who needs these only as a backup. Still great to know them. Okay, so that's my summary. That's my demonstration. As always, I reserve the right to update the system. I reserve the right to make it better. I reserve the right to reintroduce it to you in the future. If you're thinking about it, please do so carefully on my website, jrbtreeclimbing.com. I've got a shopping list page. I've got a page for building a JRB climbing system and how to do that. And I will keep that updated as any information might change in the system. And again, thank you all for your support in this journey. I think I'm doing it for the right reasons, and I appreciate the resonance that message has found with you. Thank you.